When you stop seeking validation, everything about your life begins to shift in ways you couldn't even imagine before. For the first time, you start operating from a place of internal certainty instead of external approval. You stop living to be seen and start living to become. You stop performing for the crowd and start executing for the man or woman you look at in the mirror every morning. Validation is a silent addiction. It's subtle, it hides behind compliments, likes, and people's approval. You think you're doing things because you love them, but deep down, you're waiting for someone to clap for you, to say you're doing great, to recognize your effort. And as long as you're addicted to that, you'll never truly be free, because validation chains you. It ties your worth to something that was never meant to define you, the opinions of people who don't even understand where you're going. When you level up mentally, you begin to realize that people's opinions are nothing more than reflections of their own limitations. They don't see you for who you are, they see you for what they can comprehend. They project their fears onto your vision, their insecurities onto your courage. They laugh when you start something new, they doubt you when you change, and they question you when you grow, but you learn that none of that matters. You understand that validation is a trap set by society to keep people average, to keep them seeking comfort over growth, acceptance over authenticity. You stop caring about fitting in because you've finally realized that fitting in means shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. And that's not strength, that's self-betrayal. So you stop posting for attention, stop speaking to impress, stop dressing for approval, and stop chasing recognition. You begin to do things in silence with purpose. You start operating in the shadows because you know that real power doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. When you no longer need validation, your actions become cleaner. You're no longer driven by ego, you're driven by mission. You're not trying to look successful, you're trying to be successful. You're not chasing praise, you're chasing progress. You realize that the work itself is the reward. The late nights, the sacrifices, the lonely mornings, they're not punishment. They're preparation. You start to fall in love with the grind because it's not about who's watching anymore. It's about what you're building when no one is. And here's the truth. When you stop needing validation, people will misunderstand you. They'll think you've become distant, arrogant, or cold. But you'll know the truth. You've simply stopped performing. You've stopped explaining your vision to those who can't see it. You've stopped waiting for permission to grow. You've stopped needing to be understood, because when your purpose becomes clear, the need for validation becomes irrelevant. You begin to walk differently. You speak with more calmness, more certainty. You stop reacting to every opinion thrown your way. You start observing, not absorbing. You don't get offended as easily, because you're not trying to defend an image, you're grounded in your truth. Your silence becomes your strength. Your focus becomes your message. People start to notice something different about you, but they can't quite explain it. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you no longer need the world's applause to feel valuable. When you level up mentally, you realize how much energy you used to waste chasing approval, how much time you spent worrying about being liked, being accepted, being enough. Now, that energy goes into building your craft, into mastering yourself, into living with intention. You start setting boundaries without guilt. You say no more often. You detach from people who only liked the version of you that needed them. Because the stronger your self-worth becomes, the less tolerance you have for things that don't align with it. You learn to validate yourself. You learn to clap for your small wins, to be proud of your quiet progress. You learn to say, "I'm doing great," even when nobody notices. Because you finally understand that external validation is temporary, but internal validation is permanent. The world's approval is conditional, self-respect is unconditional. As you evolve, the noise fades. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to show anyone what you're doing, because the results will speak for themselves. You let your work do the talking. You understand that real validation doesn't come from likes or applause. It comes from discipline, consistency, and self-belief. And ironically, once you stop seeking validation, that's when people start giving it to you. They'll start noticing your results. They'll start asking how you did it. They'll start admiring the confidence that came from within. But by then, you won't even care, because you'll realize you didn't do it for them. You did it for you, for the person you were when nobody believed, for the person who kept going when no one was watching. There's a quiet power in moving without needing approval. It's the kind of power that can't be faked. It's born in solitude, in self-trust, in resilience. You become unstoppable, not because everything suddenly gets easy, but because nothing external can shake you anymore. You've built an internal foundation so strong that other people's opinions, praise, or criticism can't move it. When you stop seeking validation, you finally become free to think, to create, to live. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I want?" You stop waiting for someone to tell you you're good enough and start being good enough through your actions. You no longer chase the illusion of approval, you embody the reality of purpose. And that's what mental leveling up looks like. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet, disciplined, and intentional. It's about becoming so secure in who you are that nothing outside of you can define your worth. You realize you don't need validation when you already have vision. You don't need applause when you already have alignment. You don't need permission when you already have purpose. That's when you truly level up, not when you change what's around you, but when you change what's within you. Because the moment you stop seeking validation, you stop living for them. And start living for yourself. When you become ruthless with your energy, your entire world begins to change, not gradually but suddenly. The same people you used to tolerate start to feel like noise. The same habits you once thought were harmless begin to feel toxic. You start to see how much of your life was spent giving pieces of yourself away to conversations that didn't matter, to people who weren't growing, to distractions that only existed to keep you from your purpose. And the moment that realization hits, something inside you snaps. You start guarding your energy like your life depends on it because you finally understand that it does. Your energy is the foundation of everything. It's the fuel that drives your thoughts, your actions, your vision. Without it, your potential means nothing. You can have all the talent, intelligence, and ambition in the world, but if your energy is scattered, you'll stay stuck. When you level up mentally, you stop treating your energy like it's unlimited. You stop pouring into everyone else while leaving yourself empty. You stop entertaining every call, every message, every invitation. You start choosing peace over popularity. You start choosing solitude over noise. You begin to move with intention because you understand that what you give your energy to is what you give your life to. At first, it feels harsh. You'll feel guilty saying no. You'll feel distant from people who once felt close. You'll question yourself, wondering if you're becoming too cold, too detached, too selfish. But then you realize that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. You can't build anything meaningful if your mind is constantly exhausted from meaningless things. You can't pour into your goals if you're constantly pouring into drama. You can't rise if you're chained to environments that keep you small. When you become ruthless with your energy, you stop apologizing for prioritizing yourself. You stop explaining why you're unavailable. You simply are. You begin to see through people differently. You recognize who truly supports you and who just wants to use your light to feel better about their darkness. You stop mistaking comfort for connection. You understand that not everyone deserves access to you, not everyone deserves to hear your plans, your pain, or your peace, because some people don't want to understand you, they just want to drain you. So, you stop oversharing. You stop seeking validation from conversations that lead nowhere. You start loving your own company more than the company of those who make you feel alone. When you become ruthless with your energy, you realize that peace is the new luxury. You start craving stillness more than stimulation. You no longer chase the loud nights, the constant socializing, or the endless scrolling that numbs your mind. You learn to enjoy the quiet. You start waking up early just to hear silence. You find satisfaction in simple routines, a workout, a journal entry, a long walk, because in those moments you feel aligned, you feel grounded, you feel alive in a way that chaos never gave you. People will start to notice the change. They'll say you've become distant, that you're not as fun anymore, that you're too serious. But they don't realize that you're not being distant, you're being deliberate. You've stopped chasing temporary highs and started chasing permanent peace. You're no longer addicted to being available. You've realized that every yes to someone else is a no to yourself, and you're done saying no to your own growth. This shift in energy makes you magnetic. Because when you no longer waste your time on things that drain you, your presence becomes rare, and rare things are valuable. You walk differently, you speak with more conviction, you move with purpose, not pressure. You stop explaining your boundaries and start enforcing them. You understand that not everyone will understand your focus, and that's okay. You're not here to be understood, you're here to evolve, and the more you protect your energy, the clearer your vision becomes. You start seeing opportunities that were always there but hidden behind distractions. You start feeling ideas flow easily because your mind is finally quiet enough to hear them. You start working with a level of depth and creativity that only comes from focus. You realize that discipline isn't restriction, it's freedom. Because every boundary you set gives you more space to build the life you actually want. Being ruthless with your energy also means cutting off your own toxic habits. You stop lying to yourself about what's holding you back. You stop numbing your mind with cheap dopamine, endless scrolling, pointless arguments, late nights that lead to empty mornings. You start auditing your environment and your choices. You clean your room, you fix your diet, you master your schedule, because when your energy matters to you, you stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. This kind of ruthlessness doesn't come from ego, it comes from awareness. You've seen what happens when you waste your potential. You've felt what burnout feels like. You've learned what happens when you give too much to the wrong things. So now, you protect your energy with precision. You choose silence over gossip, consistency over chaos, truth over comfort. You realize that being ruthless isn't about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally intelligent. It's about knowing when to walk away, when to stay, and when to protect your peace no matter the cost. And here's the beautiful part. Once you master this, your life becomes lighter. The anxiety fades. The overthinking quiets down. You don't chase people anymore. You don't try to force situations that drain you. You begin to trust that what's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself. You stop confusing attachment with loyalty. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to change. You start to understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to let go of people, habits, and even versions of yourself that no longer align. You become a different kind of calm, a calm that can't be shaken by external noise. A calm that comes from knowing your energy is sacred. You no longer let everyone touch it, access it, or manipulate it. You've built a boundary between who you were and who you're becoming, and you guard that boundary with everything you have. When you become ruthless with your energy, you finally understand that your time, focus, and peace are the real currencies of success. Money, fame, recognition, they come and go, but your energy determines the quality of your thoughts, the strength of your actions, and the direction of your life. So you stop spending it recklessly. You start investing it wisely, and the moment you do, everything around you begins to align because the universe always rewards a person who protects their energy like it's gold. That's the real definition of leveling up, when your energy no longer leaks into things that don't serve your higher self, when your boundaries become unbreakable, when your peace becomes your power, and when your focus becomes your freedom. Detaching from the outcome doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you finally understand what you can and cannot control. It means you've matured past the illusion that life should unfold exactly the way you want it to. You stop begging things to work. You stop chasing people, forcing opportunities, and overthinking every step. You simply start trusting the process. You stop being desperate for results and start being devoted to the effort. That's when everything changes, because detachment isn't about giving up. It's about leveling up your mindset to the point where your emotions don't depend on external validation anymore. When you detach, you move differently. You stop needing to know when or how things will work out. You stop measuring your progress by what's visible. You understand that just because you can't see the results yet doesn't mean the work isn't working. You start believing that every seed you've planted will grow, even if it takes time, even if it happens in silence. You begin to operate from a space of calm confidence, not anxious control. You no longer let uncertainty paralyze you, because you've learned that what's meant for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. In the beginning, detaching feels uncomfortable. You've been conditioned to believe that effort should equal instant reward, that if you work hard, you should see results immediately. But life doesn't move like that. Growth doesn't move like that. Sometimes you do everything right, and it still takes time. Sometimes the doors you're knocking on aren't meant to open yet, not because you're not ready for them, but because they're not ready for you. When you detach, you stop fighting that reality. You learn to wait without losing focus. You learn to trust without needing proof. You start to see that attachment is just another form of fear, that if you stop pushing, it'll all fall apart. But when you level up mentally, you realize that true power is found in surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind that says, I've done my part, now I'll let life do the rest. You start working from peace instead of pressure. You stop overexerting yourself trying to force timing. You stop being emotionally attached to outcomes you can't control. You replace obsession with discipline and anxiety with faith. When you detach, your focus shifts from results to routines. You start caring more about showing up than about being seen. You stop counting how many people are watching your journey and start counting how many times you've honored your word. You stop being addicted to outcomes and become addicted to consistency. Because the truth is, outcomes are never fully in your control, but effort always is. And when you master the effort, the results take care of themselves. Detachment also teaches you emotional balance. You stop letting wins inflate your ego and losses destroy your confidence. You start seeing both success and failure as part of the same process, feedback, not finality. You stop getting high on praise or low on rejection. You start realizing that neither defines you. You learn to stay steady, grounded, and centered. When things go well, you stay humble. When things fall apart, you stay patient. Because your worth is no longer tied to what happens around you, it's rooted in who you're becoming. People who are attached to outcomes live in constant tension. They're either overthinking the future or regretting the past. They can't enjoy the present because they're too obsessed with control. But when you detach, you reclaim your peace. You become still inside even when life around you is chaotic. You learn to breathe through uncertainty, to find calm in discomfort. You start trusting that everything happening is preparing you for something greater, something you might not even be able to see yet. You also become more creative when you detach, because pressure kills creativity and obsession blinds clarity. When you're constantly worried about the result, your mind is stuck in survival mode. But when you let go of control, your energy starts to flow again. You take risks, you experiment, you grow. You stop playing not to lose and start playing to win. You stop being scared of failure because you realize it's not the opposite of success, it's the path to it. Every setback, every delay, every no is just redirection. Detachment helps you see that, and here's the irony. When you stop forcing things, they start working out more naturally. When you stop chasing, what's meant for you starts chasing you. When you stop obsessing over timing, things begin to align effortlessly. Detachment puts you in a flow state where life starts to meet you halfway, because the universe responds to energy, not desperation, but direction. When you're desperate, you repel what you want. When you're detached, you attract it. Detaching from outcomes also transforms your relationships. You stop clinging to people, expecting them to complete you. You stop being afraid of losing them because you understand that real connections aren't built on control. You start loving freely, not fearfully. You stop chasing attention and start valuing authenticity. You no longer beg people to stay because you know that those meant for you won't need convincing. You give space instead of pressure. You give love instead of expectation. That's how real bonds form, through freedom, not fear. You'll also notice your mental health improves when you detach. You start sleeping better, thinking clearer, and moving lighter, because you're no longer constantly fighting battles in your head about what if it doesn't work out. You start living in the now. You realize that you can't control the outcome, but you can control the effort. You can control your habits, your reactions, your mindset. That's where real peace lies, not in predicting the future, but in mastering the present. The more you detach, the stronger your faith becomes. You stop needing signs or guarantees. You trust that if you're doing your best, everything is unfolding exactly as it should. You stop chasing certainty and start embracing uncertainty as a necessary part of the journey. You realize that the moments when things seem unclear are the exact moments you're being shaped the most. You stop resisting life, and life stops resisting you. That's what detachment really is, not a lack of care, but the highest form of trust. It's believing so deeply in yourself and your path that you no longer need to control the narrative. You no longer need validation from the outside world. You wake up every day knowing that you'll handle whatever comes your way, because your peace doesn't depend on the outcome anymore. And that's when life starts working in your favor, because when you detach, you're no longer chasing, you're attracting. You're no longer doubting, you're believing. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. You start to flow through life with clarity, discipline, and grace. So when you level up mentally, and you finally detach from the outcome, you become unstoppable. Because nothing outside of you can shake what's inside of you. You understand that your job is to show up, work hard, stay focused, and trust that the rest will unfold as it should. That's the freedom. Most people spend their entire lives searching for the freedom that comes when you stop controlling everything and start becoming everything you were meant to be.